Preparing the live stream. Sorry. It's my first time. I thought I would just do it.
I think Sasha should have her own television show.
Okay, we are live, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for America Saves Week. We're so glad that you could be on with us today. We are looking forward to talking about saving with a plan, and we have all sorts of great panelists with us today. So I'm going to let Carolyn start because she is from America Saves, and then we'll just keep going on.
Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Pemberton with America Saves. I am the Senior Program Manager, and I work on our workplace-based savings program, Split to Save, along with America Saves Week and some other initiatives as well. And I'm happy to be here today to talk about saving with a plan.
Where do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Lorna Wounded Head from South Dakota State University Extension. I am the Family Resource Management Field Specialist, and I work with consumers across the state to help them better manage their finances. And I'm also excited to be here today too. I think America Saves Week is a wonderful campaign, and hopefully after listening to our hour today, that you walk away with a new tip on how to be a better saver.
Jennifer, do you want to go next?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Ortquist. I'm a senior extension educator with Michigan State University Extension. And much like my colleagues have shared today, I promote financial capability and homeownership education in multi-districts and throughout the state. And saving happens to be a passion of mine. It's sort of a hobby. So I'm super excited to be here today. And thank you for letting me be a part of today's session.
And Laura, do you want to go last?
Yes, I do, Sasha. Thank you. Hi, I'm Dr. Laura Hendricks. I'm with the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture Cooperative Extension Service. I am the state specialist in personal finance and consumer economics, and I'm an accredited financial counselor. And I'm excited to be part of this event today because savings is such a basic kind of a foundation of financial stability for individuals and families.
Oh, yeah. Great. I will introduce myself really quickly. My name is Sasha Grobinstetter. I'm a consumer economics educator at the University of Illinois Extension. I'm also an AFC, so an accredited financial counselor. So, woo-hoo. And I'm excited to be the host for today. So, I want to just quickly ask a question so we can get to know our panelists a little bit better. I want to know, if you were a sandwich, what sandwich would you be and why? Jennifer, you get to go first. You look like you're ready.
All right. I would say that I would be a sandwich wrap because it's rolled in a circle and there's a lot of different layers. So I think that would best describe me.
I like it. Morna, you look like you're ready next.
Yeah, I would be a Reuben because of the sauce that's in the inside is kind of zingy, so it's a little surprising. So I occasionally can shock or surprise people with things I say and do.
Yeah. Carolyn?
I would be a tomato basil sandwich because it's fresh, tasty, and just overall simple. And that, I think, describes me. Simple sophistication and fresh. So that's.
I like it. And Laura?
I would probably be, I don't know, something really healthy and plant-based. You know, in family and consumer sciences, we are all about well-beings of all kinds. So whether that's financial wellness or physical health, that's all in our wheelhouse.
Yes. I'd be grilled cheese sandwich if anyone wanted to know.
Grilled cheese.
A little crispy, a little cheesy, a little funny. That's why I'm the host, right? Okay, let's get started with our first question. So I had got some really great answers coming in already, but the first question we have for today is, what kind of things do we save for? Jennifer, you look ready.
I think we typically save for a variety of things. Sometimes they're goal focused and sometimes they're because of an emergency. But I would say off the bat, many folks will save for goals such as things like vacation or for college education for our kids.
Okay. Carolyn, you're next. Oh, go ahead, Lorna. Go ahead.
I'm going to build on what Jennifer said about savings for emergencies. That's a big message at America Saves, is having that cash set aside that can help you when those unexpected expenses come along. And they can be good or bad expenses. It can be something like when your tire blows out on your car, or if you get the opportunity to go to the World Series and you've got some extra money set aside, you can take advantage of that opportunity. So I think having that money, in a savings account that is there for those unexpected expenses. And it's not a question of if those are going to come along, it's just a matter of when they're going to come along.
That's true. Anybody want to piggyback on Carolyn?
I will. And I have to wait till I get called on because I get so excited about answering. But so as I was kind of preparing for our session today, I just started making a list of what came to mind in terms of saving. And we need to reshingle our roof. And so for the last year, we've been kind of saving, setting aside, making sure that we have the funds for that. So it's not an emergency necessarily, but it is something that needs to be done. So I think a lot of times what we save for are maybe those wants, not necessarily because we want to be able to meet our needs, but we save for kind of those extra things that aren't those normal everyday to-day expenses.
Anything to add?
I might round out with some of the big ones that we save for. Down payment on a house. Hope we're all saving for retirement. That's a big one that plays a pretty big part in our future financial stability over the long term. And then maybe for a car or a down payment on a car. Those are some of the biggies, just to round out what we've already said.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for rounding it out. I appreciate it. Those are good answers, ladies. We're on to question 2. We got some answers on our Twitter chat. So from first answer, some of the questions, Barbara O'Neill says emergency. So the question is, what kind of things do we save for? She said emergencies, short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. Identify and price and a time and a deadline. So great things from the Twitter chat. So I'll just keep moving along. But question number 2 is, when should we go from just saving to saving with a plan? Like, what does that look like? How do we know that we need to just save with a plan now?
Well, I'll start with that if you don't mind.
Great, Carolyn.
I think saving with a plan is always important, because the research shows that people that have a plan are twice as likely to be successful in meeting their goals than those of us that may save just to save. And I think that's true for many things in life. When you know what you're working towards, you're more likely to keep going towards reaching that goal. So I think a plan is always critical to meeting our savings goals. And it doesn't have to be a complicated plan. It can be very simple, just outlining what it is, how much you want to save, and when you want to reach that goal. And that's what the America Saves Pledge is. It's just very simple, straightforward step that helps people execute a plan. And I like to call it a commitment to yourself.
Yes. Laura, you're up next. Laura.
So when should we go from just saving to saving with a plan? Well, saving should always be a part of that line item spending plan. So in a way, we're kind of saving for a plan, but there are certain times when you may have a little bit more structure to your written savings plan. So if you're saving for emergencies, you probably have a kind of a ballpark figure amount about how much you need to have in there. We usually say anywhere from 2 to 6 months of expenses, but for someone who's starting at 0, I would just recommend setting a goal of maybe even $500. So you maybe have, your plan is the amount that you're going to put away and kind of the goal amount that you eventually want to get to. But then for other things that we're saving for, like I think someone mentioned earlier, saving for vacation, you can make an estimate of how much you think that vacation is going to cost. And then you know when you want to take that vacation, and use SMART goal planning, specific, measurable, attainable, time bound, to put out the details of how much you're going to save or need to save every pay period or every week. So really specific directions about exactly how much you're going to put back and when to meet a really specific dollar amount at a certain time. So it kind of depends on the goal.
Okay. Jennifer, do you want to add anything?
Sure, and I think I'll dovetail on what was just said. For me personally, I always at any one given time have a short, medium, and long-term goal. I'm never without a financial goal on the docket. And I think for me, that has helped me ward off the unexpected that can be really expensive, but it also makes sure that I'm disciplined and diligent in saving for those things that I want and need, and that they're always a part of my monthly spending plan. It's not an afterthought.
Okay, that's good. Lorna?
So agreeing with everything that's been said, I think like with saving, there has to be a purpose to it. So even if you're saving for unexpected expenses or just having a savings account that is maybe your cushion, making sure that I have defined what is an unexpected expense. So for example, with college students, their maybe unexpected expenses needs to be things that are going to help them be successful in college.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm using this as an example, not to downplay spring break, but if you're using savings or saving for spring break, but maybe know that you might need to do an internship that you're going to have more costs out of pocket than you normally would, or if maybe your computer needs to be overhauled, or your car isn't brand new and you might need some expenses. I mean, really prioritizing what it is that you should be saving for. Same with professionals, that savings needs to focus on things that you need in order to keep and maintain your job. So if it's transportation, if it is the professional development, if it's spending on maybe even just your wardrobe and making sure that you have that professional look. But that saving has to have a purpose. And I think if you have a real defined purpose, then it's easier to create that savings plan.
I think that's all everything you said, ladies. That was great. Carolyn, do you have something to add?
Well, I was just going to add, I also think it's important to make sure we write it down. I think having a written plan is a crucial part of this as well. And it also creates a visual, which again helps you be successful in meeting your goal.
Well, before I talk about our next question, which you're leading into, Carolyn, I want to look over here at the Twitter chat and see what's going on. So AFCPE, yay, we love them, Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education, said that that they want to save start now. That you're 2 more times likely to save if you set a goal to make a plan, kind of like what Carolyn said. So those are some great things going on over here. So Carolyn kind of mentioned our third question a little bit already, but what does saving with a plan look like? Jennifer, you're ready. Do you want to answer?
Well, in some ways, my counterparts have already alluded to some of that. Having a SMART financial goal, SMART, is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And sometimes folks don't know what that means, or if they've never heard of it before.
Thanks.
On our website at mymoneyhealth.org, we actually have a nice template to help folks create a short, medium, and long-term goal with that SMART goal template. So I think that structure really helps with making that goal more realistic to life. But I think the 2 things that I always talk about in my classes is that you have to know how much you approximately are going to need for whatever it is you want to save for and your time frame. Because if those 2 things don't match, we can easily set ourselves up for failure or discouragement. An example might be you want to take your family of 4 on a Disney cruise. It's going to cost $8,000 if you get the full inclusive package, and you want to save that in 2 months. And so for some households, that might be a realistic reality, but for many it wouldn't be. So again, not necessarily a bad goal, but the time frame and the amount you want to save have to match.
Okay.
So I'd like to add to that. I think that Laura already alluded to, and Jennifer did too, about the SMART goal, knowing how much and all that type of stuff. But once you have that plan created, the next step is to figure out where is that money coming from. So if you are either increasing your income, and so you know that extra, say $100 is specifically designated for your savings goal, or if you are going to reduce some of your expenses. I think one of the reasons that a savings plan might fail is on paper, it might seem like it's going to work, but then looking at your overall budget and seeing where exactly is that money for savings coming from, if it isn't something that if it's not an amount that you've already been saving.
And where you're going to put it, so you're not tempted to steal it.
Yeah, where is it going to go? Yes.
I think that's a great point, Lorna, just to think about, where is the money coming from? Because sometimes we might not have it. So good. Carolyn, would you like to go next?
And I was going to build on Jennifer's last point where she said you have to know where it's going to go. I think that's the important piece of this, is having a dedicated savings account where this money is going into. I think people sometimes get the idea that, oh, I'm just saving in my checking account or my transaction account, whatever's left over is my savings. And I think it's helpful to have a separate bucket. When it's all in the same bucket, it's just too easy to lose track of it. And then even if you've got a plan, you don't really know what kind of progress you're making because it's all in the same bucket. So I think in order for a plan to really be effective, it's having that separate account that really gives you the ability to track the progress on your goal.
Agree. Laura, what would you like to add?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about having a written goal and how that helps to kind of formulate the plan. Kind of a little fun extra thing about written goals. So yes, having a written goal makes you more likely to attain the goal, but also if you write it in a positive language, using positive language, and if you write it as if it's already happened. So say you have a goal of, you're starting an emergency savings fund and you have a goal of $1,000, then you would write that as, I have $1,000 in my emergency savings fund in a bank savings account. So it's specific as you can, write it in positive language, write it as if it's already happened, then put it somewhere where you can see it fairly often.
I love all of those. I just want to chime in lastly, like there also is some studies that talk about how if you have an accountability partner, and so I actually talked about this with a MOPS group recently, and I called them their money buddy. Don't coin it, but talk to your money buddy and make sure that you're on track too. So just a last little tidbit there.
I am a certified financial fitness coach, and they do talk a lot about having a financial accountability partner, whether it's your coach or someone close in your circle to help keep you on track. So absolutely, that's a key point.
Yeah, it's super important. Go ahead.
I think that can be hard for some people. Like they, talking about our finances has kind of been a taboo, like you don't share that. So I think that's a great tip. And I think people should be encouraged and not to feel, to find that person that you can confide comfortably in and not feel like you're embarrassed or measuring yourself against their progress, but someone that can lift you up and help you along the way as well.
Okay. Yeah, those are great. I'm gonna check out on what's going on Twitter. I saw our fourth question just went out, so we're on time, ladies. It's good. But I will see that Kathy Sweedler is retweeting the America Saves pledge, so we really love that. So thank you, Kathy Sweedler. And we're really looking forward to keep seeing tweets come through. So the fourth question of our YouTube Live is, what action steps can people take to save with the plan today? So we kind of talked a little bit about like, where does the money go, writing it in positive language, but let's get deep into that. Like what steps should we take?
Go ahead,
sorry. Good.
So I think a great place to start, I think it was Lorna that mentioned you may have a SMART goal, but then you have to figure out where does this saved money come from? So we have basically two choices. And one of my mentors said this is what she would say, you either have to increase your income or reduce your expenses. So two options there. So maybe a great place to start is with your income statement and expense statement, and look for those places where you can where there may be opportunities to either increase your income, or more likely places where you can cut expenses. And that's that expense statement where you look at where your outgo is all of the time can be a good start to finding money to save.
I agree.
And to add to that, if you have that designated plan, so let's say it's going to be 6 months that you're going to save for this goal. If it's a goal that you've set and that you really want to achieve, then it might be easier to cut back on some of those expenses if you're constantly reminded of the kind of the reason for cutting back and scaling back. But then the other side of it, and we can talk about the same idea with even just creating a budget. If you're restricting yourself too much and you're feeling resentful or feeling like there's just no way I can cut back on my spending, then you have to go back and make adjustments for that savings goal. Just like with a budget, I always say when I'm teaching about budgets that it's very dynamic and that it can change. Your savings goal can change along the way too. And maybe it means making adjustments on what your goal is and how much that's going to cost. Or maybe it is extending that goal and trying to save for a couple more months before you end up kind of achieving that goal.
Jennifer, would you like to add?
Sure. All good points. I think we've talked a little bit about before the beneficial aspects of having a financial savings account, a bank account, whether it's with a credit union or a bank. But other things I think have been helpful for me in the past is to have that element of direct deposit. It's easy not to miss what we don't see. And the other thing too, I know that it was talked about, Laura talked about maybe increasing income, decreasing expenses. And I even think there's a third option, a combination of both. But in my life, sometimes what I've done to accelerate the progress towards my goal is I've either taken on a temporary secondary job, or I've taken on a second job that's more of a full-time. So I think sometimes if that's a possibility too, one way to increase income and maybe not feel like we're stuck with that schedule is to maybe look at it as a short term, maybe, you know, the extra work that's needed in holiday retail type thing. Oh, yeah. So just a variety of ways to jumpstart that savings behavior.
Yeah. Karen, would you like anything to add?
Well, I think those are all really important points. And the only other piece I would add is sometimes it's helpful, and this is what America Saves often says, is especially if you're new to the savings habit, is to start small. It's better to start small and feel successful and build on that and build on the habit. So like Lorna was saying, even if it takes you longer maybe to reach your goal, you're more likely to get there if you feel like you can do it. If you set an unrealistic goal and then you're not able to meet it, you can feel defeated and end up, you know, giving up. And so we often say start small, save big, because that can get you on track to developing that savings habit.
I think these are all good, ladies. I also thought about an action step that might be outside what we were thinking. I was thinking about, you know, if you're ready and you want to meet with a financial professional or an accredited financial counselor or a financial fitness coach, you know, you can do those things and meet with those people, and that could be a good action step too. So run that out there into our chat. I got some answers in our chat as well. My colleague Kamaya says that you should take a critical look at the ways you saved in the past and did it work, and what would you change, and talk with significant others or family members to make some changes. So those are some great things. So we're on to question 5. We're almost halfway there. It's so crazy. What tools or resources can we use to save with a plan? So we talked a little bit about SMART goals. We talked a little about bank accounts. Is there anything else out there that we could use to help us save better?
Well, I think Jennifer alluded to the most important one, not alluded, she said saving automatically. And I think that is the easiest way to help you get into the savings habit, is to set up an automatic transfer every month. You know, most workers are paid with direct deposit, so you can have your employer split your pay into 2 accounts. You can ask your financial institution to do it. I think that is one of the best resources out there to help all of us save, is if you can do it automatically, you set it up, you forget about it, and it's in place, and you don't ever have to worry about, you know, oh, I need to put my money into savings, and then you know, have the ability to set it aside for your designated goal, and it's there, and you have control over that money. So I think that automatic savings piece is really, really important.
That's great. Lauren,
I'm ready to go here.
You're ready. It's good.
So the very first thing I put down was automate my savings. I mean, I have some savings goals that I never would have met if I hadn't just automated it. But I've also found that what I really like is being able to just track the value of the account. So I utilize my resources with the online apps related to my banks and some other accounts. There's some other great apps out there that help with budgeting and tracking spending and that type of thing. But I just find, just to simplify things for me, I just utilize the ones associated with my bank accounts, because I love being able to just check it and see, okay, this is how much it is. This is how much interest is earned on it. And just to be able to see that progress. I've tried to save using a jar and just saving my change. And I have a tendency to kind of forget about it because I have to, it takes a little bit more time to maybe check the balance and to record things. So I find that just that automatic being able to check my balance works so much better for me. But the key then is to make sure you check it. So if you're just to be able to track that, I guess in some ways it might be good just to, have it automated and forget about it. But I think then it's going to be more meaningful if we can really just see the progress that we're making.
It might be more motivating,
Yep.
Anyway, Laura, you look like you're ready.
Well, I have one thing to add to that saving automatically. We're coming up on tax refund season, and you can also direct deposit part of your tax refund. We talk about spend some, save some. So you can either put the whole part have it direct deposited into your savings account, or you can put part into a checking. I think you can divide up to 3 different accounts. Anyway, it's Form 8888 to direct deposit, IRS Form 8888.
We're going to put that in the tweet chat right now. Please go ahead. Sorry.
That's it.
Well, I was going to just to back up what Laura just said, anything like extra money that comes in, I always think that if we know we're getting a tax refund and our plan is to save it, if that's going to kind of maybe take us further into the year than if we make purchases before we get our refund with the intent of using our refund to pay them off, or maybe we take money out of savings knowing our refund is going to go back in there. So just remembering that, well, first of all, it's not necessarily a refund because it is money we've earned and just haven't gotten yet. But I think that if we, I don't know, still look at it like it's a windfall, but just look at it like it's going to be part of our budget. It's going to boost our savings and boost our ability to be able to meet that goal, rather than we've got this extra that let's just kind of spend it on whatever we feel like spending it on.
Asha, I have one more to add, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about the importance of a monthly spending plan or budget, and unfortunately, many national stats are showing that folks aren't using that type of a tool to help them. I think that is a critical component to savings because it really helps us keep our eye on the mark of what's coming in and going out. But I'm also a very firm believer in making sure that we take a look at our non-monthly expenses throughout the year, because often what derails our efforts to save is when we're not taking consideration of things we know that are coming down the train track, but maybe we don't get a bill in the mail or it's so infrequent it's easy to forget about that. So I think there has to be some element of some foresight planning to make sure that you're accountable for those future expenses so that you can make sure that saving has a place in your budget.
These are all great answers, ladies. I really appreciate your expertise and your time. If we can go check over the Twitter, I did mention about the Form 8888, Laura. So just so you know, it is on Twitter and being retweeted. So that's awesome. We also have, it says Connecticut Families and Finances, that there's so many options are available. What tools best work for you? Automatic savings, online apps, budgeting templates, paper and pencil. Good old paper and pencil. Those are some good old things. Some, tools and resources we can use to save with a plan. So coming up on question number 6, we only have 3 more after this. So question 6 is, why is saving with a plan important?
I think Carolyn really kind of answered that earlier because she's so right that if we do have a plan, we're so much more likely to be successful. It's really hard to know what actions to take if we don't have a goal in mind. And someone mentioned about the visual, I think it was Laura, even putting that on the refrigerator so you see it every day so you're motivated.
That's great.
When I looked at this question, the thing that came to mind, sorry, I'm just jumping in.
You're fine.
I don't wait to be called on. I was thinking of our habits, our spending habits that are ingrained, that we go day to day and we don't even necessarily think about what we're spending and how we're spending. when we set a savings plan, a change has to happen. So I mean, not necessarily a change in habits, but our money is we're allocating it someplace different than it had previously been allocated. So I think that savings plan can really help us evaluate our just overall money management, what our spending habits currently are, and where it is that we can make some changes that might contribute to our financial stability or our financial well-being in the long run, rather than just kind of fulfilling that immediate need. And I think that I know when I am diligently tracking my spending, I feel so much better and feel like that I'm controlling it rather than the money is controlling me. And I think that any kind of a plan, even if we're not inclined to be a planner, I think that we can figure out how to make a plan that feels good, that feels like we can actually achieve it, and that we can actually stick to it. So I can't remember who said to make small steps in savings, but just making sure that even if it's just trying to not spend $5 a week and then putting that into savings, and how that's going to add up, eventually our habit will change and we'll just get used to that, and that'll just be a natural part of how we manage our finances.
That's great. Laura, I have Laura. Oh, go. I was gonna have Laura go next, if that's okay.
Sure. I have it. Mine is really short. I like that old saying. You may have heard it before, but it goes, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail.
I like it. It's a little intimidating. Because if you don't do it, you won't get it.
Yeah.
Carolyn, what would you like to add?
Well, I think it's kind of the same, along the same lines of what Laura said. I was just going to say, if you don't have a plan, you're not going to know when you get there. And part of having a plan and part of feeling successful is then being able to celebrate or recognize when you've reached your goal. So if you don't have a plan, you're not going to know when you've reached it, and you may never, then you're not going to have that satisfaction.
Yeah.
My favorite mantra is, do you want to be in the front seat or the back seat of your finances? Because it's ultimately up to us.
That.
I like that. Maybe I should have asked about mantras.
Well, Kathy Sweedler just tweeted to keep our eye on it helps us to keep our eye on the prize when we're setting our goals.
Thanks, Kathy. That was good. I actually wrote a tweet that said, saving without a plan is like driving without GPS. Slightly risky. You may get lost. You may get turned around along the way.
I love that.
This happened in my life before GPS was like a real thing. So I love all these answers. We're moving along, and we'll go to question 7. So how often should we reevaluate our savings plan? Laura, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, certainly anytime you have any kind of major life change, so marriage, divorce, make a big purchase, have a child, any kind of major life change, you probably need to reevaluate your financial plan, especially your savings, job loss, increased income, inheritance, windfall property. And then also, just as a kind of a base rule of thumb, I say once a year is a good time to do your kind of annual financial checkup, things like reevaluating your spending and savings plan, reevaluating your and maybe even doing a net worth statement as a check-in.
I like it. Carolyn, would you like to go next?
Well, I was going to say pretty much the same thing. And I mean, I think once a year at a minimum is a good idea. And, every 6 months, it doesn't hurt to just kind of check in. Again, it kind of helps you see what kind of progress you're making. And if you still have the same time frame and you're not quite on track, what changes can you make? And if you're ahead of your goal, that's a time to, pat yourself on the back and maybe say, okay, I'll keep doing, what I'm doing. So I think, a year is a minimum. And if you can do it, twice a year, every 6 months, I think that's the way, just to make sure you're staying on track with what your goal is.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously when you reach your goal, it's a good time then to set another goal.
Jennifer, would you like to go next?
Sure, and just a small add-on, agree with everything that was said. What's nice about that net worth statement is that also can help you see if your investments are doing well or not too, because we often forget to keep our finger on the pulse with that. But the other thing I was going to say too is I do think sometimes the frequency of checking in has to deal with the type of goal we have. Certainly if we have a short-term goal that's 6 months or less, we may want to check monthly to see how we're doing. But if we have a long-term goal like saving for retirement, then maybe more that every 6 months or once a year would be more appropriate. So the time frame of the goal might affect that as well.
And lastly, Lorna.
Yeah, so I didn't jump in and interrupt anybody this time. So I kind of jumping off what Jennifer just said. So when I was thinking of how to answer this question, my first response was regularly to check the plan and to reevaluate it. And I was probably thinking maybe more in terms of like short-term goals, because I also think that we should check it on a regular, like a monthly basis, just as we're maybe updating our budget for the month, because our budget might need to be shifted a little bit as we have different expenses for the next month. So might our savings, and it's probably better to maybe, especially if it's a short-term goal, like less than a year, we're able to make those adjustments sooner rather than later. So so we're still making progress towards our goal, but maybe we've had to just make a few tweaks and changes along the way.
It's great. I just want to add in that sometimes, when we have those life changes, like Laura said, between maybe new babies. I had lots of life changes when I first started in extension. So I was a single person on my first day of work. By that weekend, I was engaged. By a year later, I was married. The next year we had a baby. Then we bought a house. Then we upgraded our house. Like all these changes and these expenses really, while we had to like reevaluate our budget, we also had to reevaluate our savings because we had new things to pay for, like diapers or, baby wipes, just crazy things you never thought you'd have to purchase yet. And then there they are. So great things. Let's check out over on the Twitter. I think question 7 just got put out, but we do have some answers. So my colleague Kamaya says, as often as you feel like you need to check it, don't aim for perfection. Understand that it's continuous and ongoing. I think that's a good thing to remember too. So, you can always check it when you need to. We're coming down the home stretch, ladies.
I'm going to add one more thing to this question.
Yeah.
Sorry, just in terms of checking our progress on our retirement, most of my retirement accounts gives me a quarterly statement. And so that's a good time for me just to review kind of maybe what's happened in the past quarter, and just to be able to check on that. So that's a way to help me remember to check it, is to receive that quarterly statement.
Oh, that's a good idea. I will say my husband's also a financial planner, and he has a really hard time getting clients to come in the door just to even talk about their investments. So if you work with a financial planner or somebody out there who's a financial professional, please go see them at least once a year. That's important. So now that I've got off my soapbox, we can go to question number 8. Question number 8 is, and I think this one we can talk about for a little bit of a while. How come it's hard to stick to a plan? It's like,
Seisha, you just mentioned that your spouse is a financial planner, and I can just see the two of you just holding hands and blissfully watching your investment and accounts grow. But that's, for a lot of people, the reality is that there's a spender and a saver in the relationship. So sometimes it's other people in our lives that influence our spending, and we would like to think that it's all just a clear cost benefit analysis, which it may be for the two of you, but also we know that values and emotions and habits and all kinds of other things sometimes keep us from doing the things that we maybe already know we should do.
Agree. Thank you, Laura. That was good.
That is so true when it comes to like spouses or partners. My spouse and I are both spenders, but when I get maybe a little extra money or a little windfall, I'm thinking of spending on practical items, So maybe something for the house or anything like that. And my spouse doesn't, he likes to maybe spend that little extra money on some, toys and not toys necessarily, but games and kind of entertainment for himself. So sometimes just that it is difficult. But I think that one of the things I thought of, why is it hard to stick to the plan, is because when it comes to a savings plan, especially if we write it down, maybe post it on our fridge, or we have our automation all set up, it kind of had this expectation, well, this is going to work. Why wouldn't this work? But just like if we were taking a trip or going on a vacation, there might be some things that happen along the way that kind of mess the plan up or derail the plan a little bit. That can happen with a plan with a goal in mind too. And so I think sometimes it's hard to stick with the plan because saving for a goal is somewhat an intangible act. And
Yeah.
so if it's hard to maybe touch it, feel it, bite our teeth into it, it's easy to shove it aside, say, well, I'll get back to that next week, or I'll have to, or just not really get back to it. And it's easy to sort of just let it slide and let it go away.
That's true. Carolyn, would you like to go next?
Sure.
Why is it hard to stick to a plan, Carolyn? Tell us from American States, what do you see a lot?
I think, Laura and Lorna have both, identified a lot of the really important components. When I thought about this question, I think one of the pieces that sometimes gets lost in the conversation is that people forget that money in savings is meant to be spent. And especially if it's an unexpected or an emergency savings account, that money is there to be used. And so when you have those unexpected expenses, it's, sometimes it can be hard to actually take that money out. People are afraid. They're like, oh, I shouldn't touch this. Well, that's what it's for. And so if people feel like they can never touch their savings, that can be discouraging. And they may think, well, I can't ever use this money. So I think we have to give people grace to say it's okay to use that money, for its intended purpose. Or sometimes, if you're saving for a vacation and you've got a pot of money and something comes along that you weren't expecting, well, maybe you need to use some of that money to help with that unexpected expense. And so then that may give people the ability to feel, okay, I can, I'm going to keep saving, especially if they are saving automatically, their money's going to keep building. And so I think that's important to remember, is that the money is there to be used.
Yes. Jennifer, what do you like anything to add?
I just had three quick things, and some of it replicates somewhat what was been mentioned before, but Laura talked about money values. In addition to competing money values within a relationship, I often have quite a few participants who have self-competing money values. They can save, but they also like to spend. So they may be able to amass a savings account, but maybe they don't for its intended purpose, like Carolyn said, and then they're really frustrated with themselves. So I think having competing money values within ourselves can derail our efforts. The second thing I think is the ongoing struggle between needs versus wants. And I've had some great suggestions from classmates or participants who will say they'll put a sticky note on their credit card or wallet. So every time they pull it out to make a potential transaction, they ask themselves, which I think is a clever approach. But I do think the third thing, and again, some national research really supports this, is that many individuals don't have an emergency fund. So if something does come up, the money they were hoping to save for maybe a fun goal or a long-term goal is automatically sucked up because of the emergency. So I think part of this whole discussion today is remembering that there are different types of savings, small emergency funds for small unexpected expenses. But we also can't forget about emergency funds for lack of income. If we've lost a job or our hours are reduced or a company that we're working for closes, so that we have different saving focuses in mind that will help keep us financially stable. Because I think someone said earlier, it's not if a life event will come, it's when.
Yes. Yes. And I would like to tell Laura that even though my husband and I are both financial planners, I am the spender. So my husband doesn't love it when I spend the money. So just got to let you know that. But I do appreciate the glorious idea of us holding hands and looking at I think he would really appreciate it if I did that. But let's see. Let's check out over on the Twitter. So Lori Hendrickson says, so many things, both needs and wants, get in the way of our good intentions. Ooh, good intentions. And I love that Laura brought in the word values. And, I just did a class on with money habitudes and talking about money scripts. And these are all things that are, are Googleable later. But basically, when you come into a marriage, or even with a spouse, or even if you're dating, like you have opposing views on how money is viewed, and that can create conflict. And it can be terrible, actually, when you have different values about money. So it's just me adding my 2 cents. So
I was going to add something to that.
Yeah.
Is that, and I think someone, maybe Carolyn brought this up earlier, is that it's hard to talk about money. And if maybe we feel bad about how we approach money, like I personally, it's going to be really hard for me to talk to my spouse about it, and maybe just address kind of the elephant in the room type of a thing. And then to get to the point where it's okay for us to seek out help. It'd be interesting to learn about what are all the stigmas associated with seeking out that help, and why people don't necessarily want to be able to do that. So it's even if maybe, like, I know I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, I know I need to be saving more, I'm not quite sure how to make that happen, but I need to make sure it's important that I understand to seeking out help. So accredited financial counselors are great resources to be able to work with someone. Even like, I'm an accredited financial counselor. In my role in extension, I am, part of my job is to work with consumers. So, and it doesn't cost anything. So if anyone ever needs any help or just wants some advice on managing their finances or how to make a savings plan, I'm an example of someone that can be reached out to. So I think that that's important, that as we look at saving, just to make it more realistic, is if we don't know how to do it, we just don't know where to start, then find some help.
Good point.
And then I know that Laura is also an AFC, right? Yes. And then Jennifer, are you?
I'm a financial fitness coach with AFC.
Okay, so we all have designations. So that's really good. And they're all from AFCPE. I just shout out to them so that they can, talk about the AFC, and hopefully, where to find an accredited financial counselor in someone's area if they're looking. So
yeah, you can go to the afcpe.org website.
Oh, yes, that's true.
And you can look for financial counselors in your area. They keep a great database there for anybody. And a lot of times financial counselors will meet either over the phone or online with you. So it's not where you actually have to physically.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't like to physically meet because, this world.
And many state extension services.
Yes, that's what we are. We're extension people, right?
Have money management or personal finance courses. And it's interesting talking about the stigma, because I would say, in all honesty, in the last 2 years, I've seen a lot of walls come down with participants who enroll in my class. They just want help. They are no longer reluctant to say, I'm struggling with debt, or I have a poor credit score and I want to improve that because I've got goals that's getting in the way of. So that really has been, I think, a great thing, at least for me to see, is that there seems to be less of a reluctance to say, I would love this information. How do I get it?
And I would add one thing while we're talking about that stigma. There's also, just in addition to that cultural stigma, people can find themselves in relationships where there's some kind of financial abuse or financial power and control. Money is so often used as a means of power and control, not just in cohabitating relationships, but in all kinds of ways. So that can come into play when we're not able to make the decisions we think we should or that we want to. And then also stress, PTSD, complex PTSD can really impact our ability to make sound financial decisions. And that's a time when a coach or some kind of support group might be helpful as well.
I agree. Those are all great points, ladies. I really appreciate it. And of course, talking about extension, because other than Carolyn, but she's with America Saves and we love them. But we're all extension professionals, whether we're PhDs and doctors or if we're just extension educators out in the field. We love doing what we do.
Well, I just want to commend you all for the work that you do as extension educators. You really do serve a great need in the communities, and it's wonderful to have you as part of the America Saves Network. We really value that relationship.
We value it too, trust us.
Yeah.
We really appreciate America Saves. So we're on the end of this, ladies. Thank you all for sticking with me. I appreciate it and all my funny jokes and not so funny jokes. But I want to know, what is your number one savings tip? I want to know. I got to know what it is. Carolyn, would you like to start? You started us out. We'll finish up with you going first.
I mean, my number one tip is to save automatically. I just think that makes it easier to accomplish your goals. You can use the America Saves Pledge as a simple goal, set up your automatic savings, and you can check it regularly, but that way you don't have to worry about taking the step every week, every month to put your money into savings. And I just think the automatic piece of it can't be stressed enough. So that would be my number one tip.
Great. Laura, I'm gonna have you go next.
Yes, so we've talked about so many good things today, and I think sometimes it can be overwhelming. So I think my number one tip to offer today would be just to find a place and start there. Find what works for you. Just try things. Just do something. Find a place and start. Do it now.
I like it. Jennifer, I'm gonna let you go next, and then I'll have Lorna go last.
For me, I think kind of a paradigm or mind or thought shift for me, consider saving just as important as paying a bill, because then it makes it a priority.
That's great. And Laura had to leave us, so that's why we went from 5 to 4, just so everyone knows. Lorna, what is your number one? I love that, by the way. Like, I wish people did make saving just as important as the bill. That's great. But I want to hear from Laura's number one tip.
So my tip is to automate, just like Carolyn said, but automating makes it like it's a goal that has to be paid. I automate most of my bills or my expenses. And so it happens, like that money going into a savings account is just like money going to pay my mortgage. And I think that the other tip is, our standard pay yourself first. And if you work or make an intention to pay that savings bill, essentially, a lot of times you don't even realize that money's not there to spend. Because I think if we pay all our bills and then work with whatever's left over and plan on savings coming out of there, we're not going to save anything. But if we save first and then work with what's left, we're not even going to realize that's not there.
That's great. Yes, I love that idea of the automated savings. I'm going to throw out my savings tip because this is my favorite. I even made a YouTube video of my cat doing this. It's pretty cool. She's a financial fat cat. Check it out. But my tip is just to cook at home and make meals at home. So my husband actually told me that we saved $200 just by meal prepping and planning and eating meals at home.
Wow.
I was like, holy smokes, $200. I was like, what can I spend with that? But that's a joke. But it was really great to hear that, we had an extra $200 to save just because we made better decisions about how money is going out with our food. But I want to thank you all, ladies, for being here. I want to thank Laura. She's already gone, but Jennifer and Lorna and Carolyn, I thank you so much for coming and these great, amazing tips for money or from America Saves Week. It's like, my brain is not here, but we talked lots about money and it was really great. So all of you have a really great day and that's it.
Bye. Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
And
Bye.
learn lots about America Saves Week this week. Lots of different activities happening throughout the week.
Yep.
Definitely.
Follow
Thank you,
up.
ladies.
All right.